How did you get into swing dancing? That's something I've always wanted to learn, actually.
Oh, um, it was just one of those I had nothing better to do kind of things, and some friends invited me. Well, actually, the first time the first couple of times that I went swing dancing was like many years ago. It was with my Bible study group from church, and I actually gave up after those first two times. Like I just couldn't get into it. And for them it was just kind of like a one-time thing. It was like just a fun thing to do just for that one night.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't planning to do anything else with it. And then um, maybe a year after that, I actually flew from California to Connecticut to meet up with a bunch of internet friends. And the first thing they did was go swing dancing because the person who was hosting the event was into swing dancing. And I actually wasn't planning to do any dancing because from my previous experiences, like I was like I just knew I couldn't really get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I missed the beginning lesson because I got there late just because of my flight schedule. So I just walked in. It was like after the lesson was already over, and I was planning to just kind of like sit against the back wall. And it turned out there was like a 3-to-1 ratio of women to men, and
Mm-hmm.
so like all these women kept asking me to dance, and I would be like, I don't really know how. And then they would like try to, they would like reteach me the basic step, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can do that. Um, and then the friend who invited all of us asked me to dance, and then she would just kind of like do all these improv styling as I was just leading the basic step. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like I could just keep on doing the same step over and over again, and then she can just do whatever she wants, and it works. So I kind of got more curious about it and asked her to teach me how to do a few moves, and then I actually wound up taking a couple of private lessons, and that really helped me with like stuff I was having trouble with, like especially like how to lead certain moves. Um, and then yeah, that was actually the year that I officially say I had nothing better to do. Um, so um, so yeah, I'd found this swing dance club that was like just down the street from where I worked. I was curious, and so I just kind of went there and took a few Lindy Hop lessons, and then just gradually just got a little more into it, and so yeah.
That's is that like a church thing that a lot of churches do? Because I I used to go to church and they had a swing dancing group there too.
It kind of was maybe about 10 years ago. I don't really hear much about stuff like that now. I don't like
Huh.
the church that I go to now. I mean, as far as I know, they've never like had a swing dance gathering for their singles group.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it is something that does come up every once in a while. Like maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I remember all these church groups or parachurch organizations would every once in a while have like a swing dance group activity night or whatever.
Hmm. Interesting. What part of California do you live in?
I actually don't live there now.
Oh.
I grew up in around LA and Orange County,
Hmm.
and I moved to the Seattle area about 10 years ago or 12 years ago. Oh, it's
Okay.
been that long.
Yes, I live like in Sacramento. So not too
Okay.
familiar. I'm not too familiar with Southern California, but
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've passed through Sacramento a lot because I would after I moved to Seattle, I would drive back and forth between Seattle and LA a lot.
mm,
So I-5, I would see like uh, Sacramento, it's really interesting as you're approaching Sacramento because it's like you're on the outskirts of town. You see all these like new residential areas.
Hmm.
There, I noticed every time I would drive by there like once a year, and every time I would see like all these new housing developments that weren't there before.
Yeah, it's they just keep expanding. Um,
Yeah, yeah, because there's nothing else out there. There's plenty of room to expand.
yeah, it makes me mad though because they could be building upwards instead of outwards.
Oh
Make it
yeah.
actually more of a city and stop like um, I don't know if the land they're building on is important for nature or anything, but
Hmm.
I, it's bad for travel too. Like you have to make if you want to go somewhere, you have to drive a lot further when everything is expanded outward.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I want to live in a place like San Francisco or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Southern California is a lot like that, especially the LA and Orange County area. I mean, everything's just spread out.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's why the old saying that nobody walks in L.A. I mean, yeah, it's hard to get by without a car. And I kind of live that way now. I mean, I've lived there, the first 30 years of my life, and so like now I'm living in one of the suburbs just outside Seattle, and um, I actually would not enjoy living in Seattle because it would just um, it's just not the way I prefer to live. Like having to rely on public transportation because I actually enjoy driving. Um, so usually if I decided to just go on a random drive, I'll I pretty much always drive in the opposite direction from Seattle.
Yeah. I hope that I can live in a place where I never have to drive.
Oh really?
I like walking everywhere. Um, and buses. I like buses and taking the light rail. It feels like I don't know. I guess I just like city life, but I also would like to live out in the middle of the forest. So it's really hard to. It's
Yeah, it's
hard
kind of
to decide
yeah
because I need a car for that for sure.
yeah. Have you done a whole lot of traveling? I noticed some Texas stuff on your bulletin board.
Texas? What? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The bulletin board behind you.
Oh, okay, yeah, my real bulletin board. No, that's a postcard I got from somebody who went to Texas, but I have actually spent like 3 weeks in Texas.
Okay.
When I was younger, my mom found the other like half of her family because she was adopted. She found like half of her real family living in Texas, and we went and visited them. It was really cool. We drove there, so we went through Arizona and New Mexico. That was basically it, I think, for Texas. We spent a few days in Arizona, and then when I was younger, before that, we did a road trip to Kansas, which it wasn't very scenic. But we went through Utah, Nevada, Missouri, Nebraska, Wyoming. Wyoming was really pretty.
Mm.
But yeah, I have like one image of all those places in my head, and then don't
Okay.
remember anything else about them. Because I mean, we pretty much just drove through them. So
Yeah.
we spent a little time in Kansas, but we didn't really leave my grandmother's house. So
Oh, that's what you were doing there.
yeah, visiting the first half of my mom's family that she found.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of cool. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I've never been out of the U.S. and I really want to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually didn't until actually my very first time out of the U.S. See, I think I was 25 and I had just started working, and it was a business trip. They sent me to Jakarta, Indonesia, of all places.
Hmm.
And yeah, they sent me there by myself, and the only reason they sent me was because the guy that they wanted to send, who was like the primary developer in our company,
Uh-huh.
had just had his first baby, and so his wife
Mm.
needed him at home to help her care for the baby. So the company sent me instead, and yeah, it was not a good first experience out of the country. Um, I mean, I think looking back though, about half the things I complained about were specific to Indonesia. The other half were just like being out of the country for the first time and just like not being familiar
Yeah.
with stuff like um, just having to calculate a different currency or uh, what else? Just the humidity kind of got to me, um, and or just the fact that um, a lot more people smoke.
Mm.
So I was like just like constantly surrounded by cigarette smoke. Um, yeah, and I think just just kind of just generally just being a fish out of water and just not knowing and just having to ask for every little thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was just overall just not a very comfortable experience. I would probably I'd probably enjoy it more now that I've had more general traveling experience and kind of know can better handle the unexpected.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been to Australia, um, so that was fun. Wouldn't really call it that much of a like a. It's not really a foreign country experience
Yeah.
because it's basically a lot like the U.S. only they talk different. Um, and same thing with Canada. Um,
I'd
but
like to
yeah,
go to Canada.
yeah. I wouldn't recommend going there like just to go to Canada unless it's like really convenient. Because like I live just a couple of hours from the Canada border, so like I can just pretty much go there
Yeah.
for a weekend if I want. But yeah, once you get there, it's like well you forget that you're in a foreign country um, until you have to like pay for something in cash and go oh yeah the cash looks a little different. Um, or if you're driving you have to pay attention to kilometers instead of miles.
Mm.
Um, But yeah, other than that, it just does not feel at all like a foreign country. Um,
I like the scenery of it.
yeah,
Certain places in Canada.
yeah. I drove up to northern British Columbia a couple of like back in 2006, and that was really scenic because I drove through the Canadian Rockies in British Columbia, so that was really scenic. Um, yeah, I like to drive to like places that just don't look like anything I've ever seen before. So like I enjoyed the first time I ever drove through Utah and Colorado. Um,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I've been through Idaho, Montana. I drove through a small corner of Wyoming without knowing it because there were no signs at all. It didn't say like entering Wyoming or anything like that. And then later on, I looked at a map and I followed the highway that I drove on. It's like it crosses into Wyoming just for a little bit, and then it crosses back into Montana. It's like, oh wow,
Jeez.
so I was in Wyoming, didn't know it.
Did you see the big I just remember there were these big red mountains that were flat, um, rocky,
I
and then
saw I saw a lot of those in Utah.
huh. Yeah, I figure it's probably pretty similar.
Yeah,
But I remember going from Wyoming to Nebraska was interesting because it was like mountains and then suddenly fields, and then there were these like animals. I don't know what they were. Like, not antelope. We don't have antelope, do we? There
Bison?
was something that ran and jumped and had horns. Um, I
Uh,
think we saw buffalo as well, but not were they? They weren't elk. What were they? Never mind. Doesn't matter. But that was cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been on a road trip in a long time. I just saw Northern California for the first time like a year ago, and that was
Uh,
amazing.
oh, what part?
Uh, we actually went up to Crescent City and stayed in
Oh,
the redwood forest there,
yeah.
and we drove up to Oregon for a day.
Oh,
Just like
cool.
into the very first town in Oregon. It was kind of weird and looked like a place you'd retire or something.
Oh, is it one of the small towns on the beach?
Yeah.
Um, what was
What's
that?
it called?
Uh, Brookings?
Yes, that's what
Okay,
it was.
yeah, yeah. I've driven all along the Oregon coast at some point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't do it all in one trip. I just like all the like different times I've driven down to California. I would take the coastal route and then and then cut inland. But then I would go back again another time and see a different part of the coast. Um, yeah, yeah. The Oregon coast is probably one of my favorite road trips. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've done the California redwoods. Um, let's see what else? Did you know? Oh, by the way, did you know the Humboldt County is known for like weed?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were we were in Humboldt briefly. We stopped in Arcata,
Oh yeah,
a
stay
nice,
there.
cool little town.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I've never smoked weed, so I wouldn't really be able to fit in. But
Yeah, yeah. I think I stayed at. I think it was a Super A motel. I think it was in Arcata, and they had these little signs like all over the room that talked about how marijuana was illegal and anyone smoking would be, like would be arrested or or stuff like that. Um, so it's like, oh well, yeah, apparently they have problems here.
that's weird. If I walked into a hotel like in the Central Valley of California and I saw that, I'd just be like, "What kind of hotel is this?"
Yeah, you
How
ever driven
long?
to like?
Oh, what?
Have you ever driven to like either Yosemite or Lake Tahoe?
Lake Tahoe. Yeah, spent some time in Lake Tahoe. Um, I've never been to Yosemite, which is like, as a Californian, it's terrible. But we've been, my family's been talking about going for years, and we never have because whenever we have a family trip, we always want to go by the ocean somewhere
Okay.
or to Tahoe, somewhere on the water. Now, are there good swimming lakes in Yosemite?
Um, I don't know. I mean, well, actually, I haven't been to Yosemite since
Oh,
I was like probably high school. Went
hmm.
there with my parents. Um, yeah, I was almost going to go by myself, but like one of the times I drove back down to California, um, and then I was running late, and so I decided to skip it. So,
Oh, that's
yeah, yeah, I've driven around Lake Tahoe. My very first time outside of California was actually we were going around Lake Tahoe and going into Nevada. But I must have been about 6 years old, so I barely remember it.
I was just there not too long ago. Last camping trip was in Lake Tahoe. My family goes camping every year.
Oh, okay.
It's the best part of the year.
Yeah. Is it like real camping? Like do they set up an outdoor tent, or is it just like cabins?
We always have a tent.
Hmm.
There are bathrooms and showers that you have to pay for with quarters, but so we go to like a campground where everybody like has tents. Some people have RVs, but that's not real camping.
Yeah. My parents used to take me camping, like when I was the first few years of my life. So I just probably pretty much don't even remember it. I have really vague memories of us camping, um, but yeah, I was like really little, and I know my mom hated it. It was all my dad's idea. I think my dad's also an ISTP. I mean, my mom's an ESFJ, and
Interesting.
so like yeah, my mom prefers like really fancy hotels, and so um,
Huh.
supposedly the one it's kind of funny, the one event that I think um, uh, made my mom decide like, okay, that's it, no more of this camping stuff, was when a rattlesnake invaded our campsite,
Ooh,
and
that's scary.
yeah, and I think I was I was most likely out of harm's way. Like, so we actually stayed in our my parents had a a Chevy Blazer, like a 1974 Chevy Blazer. So like there's plenty of room for three of us to sleep. So I was like safe in there, but my mom was still worried about like just the fact that there were snakes in the area. My dad actually shot a snake with his pistol. Um, um, but yeah, my mom was pretty freaked out by that, so she decided, okay, no more camping, not while we have a kid. And so like we never went again after that. Um,
Huh.
and and the other little incidents, like I kept running around and hurting myself. Like I would run around with a sharp stick and then like trip and fall, and I poke my forehead with a stick.
That's funny because like when we went camping when I was a lot younger and my younger brother was a lot younger, he would get into dangerous situations, but my mom still loved camping every year. And like I don't know, my mom likes dangerous animals too. Like I don't know if she'd be so happy about a rattlesnake in the campsite, but like she likes when we find like giant cool spiders and stuff
uh,
like that. So, I don't know. Both my dad always wanted to do really intense backpacking, but that was a little too extreme for my mom, I think. Um,
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really that gone camping even on my own, unless you count like unless you count stopping by the side of a road and sleeping in my car.
No, I don't count that.
uh, yeah, but,
How long are these videos usually?